Taiwan detects 103 Chinese warplanes around island. Paraguay finance minister says country is open to China investment. The world is struggling to make enough diesel. IMF to urge China to shift growth model towards consumption. China's Wang Yi visits Russia ahead of possible Xi-Putin meeting. 1 in 10 Japanese now aged over 80. Poland, Hungary, and Slovakia to ban import of Ukraine grains. Mali, Niger and Burkina Faso sign Sahel Security Pact.
Hello, I'm Johnny. Thank you for joining us on Funday News. It's Tuesday, September 19th, and here are your top stories. Taiwan's Defense Ministry said in a statement between the morning of September 17th to 18th, the Ministry of National Defense had detected a total of 103 Chinese aircraft, which was a recent high and has posed severe challenges to the security across the Taiwan Strait and in the region. The statement said of the total number of warplanes detected, 40 crossed the so-called median line of the Taiwan Strait that separates the island from China and enter its southwest and southeast air defense identification zone.
Taiwan's defense ministry said some of the planes and warships detected on Wednesday were heading to an unspecified area of the Western Pacific.
Taiwan's defense ministry told China on Monday to stop its destructive unilateral actions. The ministry said Beijing's continued military harassment can easily lead to a sharp escalation in tension and worsen regional security. Last week, Taipei also reported an increased number of incursions by Chinese warplanes and ships. Japan's defense ministry also said last week its navy had detected 6 ships sailing through waters some 650 kilometers south of Miyakojima Island, east of Taiwan.
Paraguay Finance Minister Carlos Fernandez said the country would consider Chinese investment to develop its green hydrogen industry as it seeks to become a regional fertilizer supplier. Fernandez said in an interview with Bloomberg TV, "I'm open to talking to any entrepreneur from China who wants to invest and create jobs in Paraguay." He added, "It's not a question of China versus Taiwan. We're open to everyone." Fernandez warned that Chinese investment is displacing the U.S. and Europe in Latin America.
The Paraguay finance minister said, the U.S. could play a bigger role on economic investment in the whole region and not only Paraguay. He noted, otherwise someone else will take its place. Paraguay has ample supplies of the 2 key ingredients needed to produce green hydrogen, water and renewable power from 2 massive hydroelectric dams, that can be further processed into synthetic fuels and fertilizers. Beijing is now a top trading partner of many countries in Latin America.
Bloomberg reported that the world's oil refiners are proving powerless to make enough diesel, opening a new inflationary front and depriving economies of a fuel that powers industry and transport alike. Even though last Friday oil futures were just below $95 a barrel in London, the rally pales in comparison with the surge in diesel. U.S. prices jumped above $140 to the highest ever for this time of year last Thursday. Europe's equivalent soared 60% this summer.
A major U.S. diesel fuel supplier issued a warning about an oil shortage on the East Coast, predicting that it would cause a temporary increase in the price of a wide range of consumer items.
Bloomberg said the situation is challenging for a global refining fleet that's been dogged by lackluster production for months. Searing northern hemisphere heat this summer forced many plants to run at a slower pace than normal. All this comes on top of a global refining system that shuttered less efficient plants when COVID-19 trashed demand. Now consumption is rebounding, but many refineries are gone. The IEA's monthly report last week anticipated consumption growing by about 100,000 barrels a day this year.
IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva told Reuters that the International Monetary Fund plans to tell China to boost weak domestic consumption, address its troubled real estate sector, and rein in local government debt, problems that are dragging down both Chinese and global growth. She said the fund will strongly urge Beijing to shift its growth model away from debt-fueled infrastructure investment and real estate. Georgieva added, "We actually project that medium-term growth in China can fall below 4%.
Georgieva said in an exclusive interview the messages will be delivered to Chinese authorities in a forthcoming IMF, Article 4, review of China's economic policies. The IMF in July forecast China's 2023 growth rate at 5.2% and 4.5% in 2024, but warned it could be lower given the contraction in real estate. The new forecasts are expected to reflect concerns about anemic GDP growth around the world. Georgieva said with China generating about a third of global growth this year, its growth rate matters to the rest of the world.
China's top diplomat Wang Yi begins on Monday a 4-day trip to Russia, during which both nations are expected to pledge deeper mutual political trust, readying for a possible landmark visit by President Vladimir Putin to Beijing in October. The Chinese Foreign Ministry said in a statement, Wang, who heads the Foreign Ministry as well as the ruling Communist Party's Foreign Affairs Office, will meet Security Council Secretary Nikolai Patrushev for annual security talks.
Ahead of this week's visit, Wang traveled to Malta for hours of constructive talks with White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. Reuters said that the weekend talks between U.S. and Chinese high-level officials could lay the foundation for a meeting this year between Xi and U.S. President Joe Biden. Wang is expected to lay the groundwork for Putin's visit to the Chinese capital for the Third Belt and Road Forum, which comes after an invitation by President Xi Jinping during a high-profile visit to Moscow in March.
According to a government report issued to mark the annual Respect for the Aged Day, the over-80s for the first time accounted for more than 10% of Japan's population. Japan's persistently low birth rate and long lifespans have made it the oldest country in the world in terms of the proportion of people aged over 65, which this year hit a record of 29.1%. Ballooning Social Security spending has added to Japan's massive debt, and the shortage of young people has left many industries short of labor, not least caregivers for the elderly.
Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida has said the country risks losing its ability to function if it does not take radical measures. Japan's steps to bolster the birth rate haven't been successful, while authorities have been hesitant to accept large numbers of migrant workers to make up the shortfall. Last year, the number of babies born fell to less than 800,000 for the first time since records began in the 19th century. According to the report, Japan's overall population fell by about 500,000 to 124.4 million.
Poland, Slovakia, and Hungary announced restrictions on Ukrainian grain imports last Friday after the European Commission decided not to extend its ban on imports into Ukraine's 5 EU neighbors. Among the other 2 countries neighboring Ukraine, Bulgaria last Thursday voted to scrap the curbs, and Romania said it would wait for Ukraine to present its plan to prevent a surge of exports before deciding how to protect Romanian farmers. The EU said as long as Ukraine exercises effective export control, there's no reason to ban.
The EU created alternative land routes, so-called solidarity lanes, for Ukraine to use to export its grains and oilseeds after Russia backed out of a UN-brokered Black Sea grain deal in July. Farmers in the 5 countries complained about a product glut hitting their domestic prices and pushing them towards bankruptcy. The EU Commission said existing measures would expire as originally planned last Friday after Ukraine agreed to introduce measures such as an export licensing system within 30 days.
Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, 3 West African Sahel nations ruled by military juntas, signed a security pact on Saturday, promising to come to the aid of each other in case of any rebellion or external aggression, including with the use of armed force. According to the charter of the pact, known as the Alliance of Sahel States, any attack on the sovereignty and territorial integrity of one or more contracted parties will be considered an aggression against the other parties.
The 3 countries are struggling to contain Islamic insurgents and have also seen their relations with neighbors and international partners strained because of the coups. The Economic Community of West African States has threatened to use force to restore constitutional rule in the latest coup in Niger. France is in a tense standoff with the junta that seized power in Niger after it asked it to withdraw its troops and its ambassador. All 3 states were members of the France-supported G5 Sahel Alliance joint force.
The answer for yesterday was A, workforce. Over 10% of the workforce is now idle. Did you answer correctly? Now let's delve into the news of 1 in 10 Japanese now aged over 80. Number 1, account for something. 数量或比例上占多少? Computers account for 5% of the country's commercial electricity consumption. Number 2, lifespan. 寿命可持续年限有效期 Worms have a lifespan of a few months. Number 3, shortfall. 不足缺口差额 The government has refused to make up a £30,000 shortfall in funding. Next, we have a multiple choice question for everyone to practice. Which answer would you choose? You can write your answer in the comment section below. The correct answer will be announced tomorrow. And that's all for today's Funday News. Be sure to tune into Funday News from Monday to Friday and click the link below to join Funday for free. I'm Johnny Wu, your host. I'll see you next time.